I am rejoined by Charlie Gasparino and David Asman. We were speaking earlier about interest rates, so I feel like I should say we're saying where is the money going? If China's weaker than expected, Europe's weaker than expected, we're holding steady at best. But I was looking at the 10-year, 1.8%. So it just seems as if everybody is a little bit panicky, looking for safety. I want to play this soundbite from Warren Buffett on interest rates. I want to get both of your takes on it.
Hillary's going to get the nomination, and it looks to me like Trump's going to get the nomination too. But Bernie Sanders did start at 3% or something like that, and attracted millions and millions of particularly young people. I give him credit for it.
Would you, if you were running the Fed today, tighten rates again in June?
I probably wouldn't.
On the phone with me now, Economist Ben Stein. Ben, glad you could join us.
Honored to be here. Thank you.
So you just heard Warren Buffett, whether you agree or disagree. First of all, it's hard to find people who disagree with Warren Buffett, but his take on interest rates, what do you do? How do you see the U.S. economy right now?
Well, I think the economy is extremely strong. I think this is the strongest developed economy in the world by a long, long way. I don't think there's any need to change interest rates one way or the other. There's not much sign of inflation. There's not much sign of a bubble in any particular commodity, except perhaps the only commodity that there might be a bubble in is stocks, and that's not exactly a commodity.
So, Ben, I don't want to interrupt you, but when you say the U.S. economy is strong, do you think, as the traders on the floor say, we're the cleanest dirty shirt in the closet, or do you think that we're fundamentally strong? Are we strong just because we're better than maybe some weaker players right now?
No, we're very, very strong. We have below 5% unemployment. Corporate profits are a little weaker this quarter than they were in recently past quarters, but the economy is very, very strong. And I have to say, if I may, Mr. Obama gave an interview to the New York Times recently in which he bragged about how well he had handled the recession. And I have to say, although I am by no means a fan of Mr. Obama, I think he was right. I think his administration did handle it a lot better than the previous administration, and I think he deserves some credit for it. I mean, I'm not a fan of his, but I think they're doing well. The economy is doing well. And you asked, you're doing the lead into talking to me, where's the money going? Well, the money's just circulating all around the world. I mean, it doesn't have to go any particular place. It's just circulating around and around and around.
So, Ben, let me ask you to play devil's advocate, and I respect your objectivity and admire it. But as far as labor market participation rate, it's still at the lowest since the late 70s, meaning tons of people have just given up looking for jobs.
Well,
if you speak to people, I'm not even finished. Hold on. One other point about wages. Even for people who have jobs, they haven't gotten raises if you look at adjusted for inflation. So people really don't have any muscle, like extra earnings muscle. You're the economist, so I'm going to listen to you. I just wanted to point out those two stats.
Well, we have enough extra muscle to keep the economy running at a very high level. We have enough extra money for people, if you include fringe benefits and if you include government benefits, to be living at a much higher standard of life than they were 20 years ago. It is true we have a lot of people who are not engaged in labor, who have labor force age. The government, this is a giant government mistake. The government bribes people to not work. The government gives such lavish welfare benefits to people who don't work that they're essentially bribing Americans to not work.
You have some guys basically cheering for you.
Can I just say one thing? Ben Stein and I used to work together at the Journal. I love Ben Stein. His father was one of the most brilliant economists ever, Herb Stein. He was a great economist. But Ben, 0.5% is the growth of the U.S. economy in the last quarter. Over the entire Obama years, it's been 1.7%. Granted, we came out of a great recession, but so did Ronald Reagan. His average GDP growth was 3.5% during his term. How can you possibly say it's a strong economy?
Well, it's not as strong as it was under Reagan, but it's
half as strong as it was.
Or France or Italy or Spain or Japan.
Yeah, but we're the tallest midget in the room, Ben.
Excuse me?
Listen, my family lives in Italy. To compare us to them is like saying, like, we're the tallest midget in the room.
Italy is a developed, prosperous country.
Northern Italy is pretty developed. Southern Italy is kind of a hole. I know that for a fact. It's a beautiful hole, but it's a hole.
Charlie's going to get kicked out of all kinds of restaurants on his next vacation, Ben. We're sure you won't. But
certainly Italy is considered a developed, advanced Western country.
It is, but
all the countries I mentioned are considered developed, advanced Western or Eastern countries.
But let's be real.
We do not have as strong a growth rate as we'd like to. We have a giant demographic event happening in this country. We have a large number of people joining labor force age who have no particular skills, no particular training, who have a very poor attitude about work ethic, and that is a gigantic problem. And how Mr. Obama addresses that, I don't know.
But is that the reason why we've had this slow under President Obama, and it's not all of it's his fault because he inherited a mess. Under President Obama, we've had the slowest economic growth ever since the 1930s.
And just to back up my friend Charlie, Ben, just to back up my friend Charlie, this is the only recession in my lifetime, Ben, that we've come out of where instead of lowering tax rates and lowering regulations in order to stimulate the economy, we've done exactly the opposite.
But wait a second. There are too many regulations. I totally agree with that, especially in the carbon area. There are way too many regulations.
Trillions of dollars worth of regulations.
Conclusive data that lowering taxes stimulates the economy. I mean, that's
lowering tax rates? You doubt that lowering tax rates had anything to do with the 1980s?
No, sir. In 1981,
there's going to be a big fight on this.
Mr. Reagan lowered taxes, and for the next 6.5 years, he had substantial tax increases every year.
All right.
And that's when the government...
Listen, Ben,
I got to break up the fight here, Ben.
He just wants me to pay higher taxes because I got a new contract. I know that.
Ben, who's going to get a table at any Italian restaurant he likes. Charlie, who's not. And David Asman, all staying with me.
I'll eat with Ben.